10. Now, when you have multiple variables in one problem, I want you to ignore 2 of the variables. I don't even want you to look at them. I want you to pretend they are not even part of the problem. So I'm going to pretend that x isn't there. If I can't see you, you can't see me, right? My daughters do that when they're in trouble. They're like, don't look at mommy. Don't look at her. If I don't look at her, she can't see me. Anyways, okay. So we are trying to solve for y. And we need to know which proportion to use. There's 2 proportions. Have them sitting in front of you right now. I want them sitting in front of you, those 2 proportions. You pick the proportion based on what you're looking for. I'm looking for the altitude. Only one of those 2 proportions has the word altitude in it. So I'm going to use the one that says hypotenuse part 1 over the altitude equals the altitude over hypotenuse part 2. Now I need to be careful. I don't use 30 and 6. That's not hypotenuse part 1 and part 2. No, it's not. 30 is the hypotenuse, and 6 is one of the parts. So I did need to do some subtraction, and I needed to get the 24. So the altitude, y, is the geometric mean of 6 and 24. So all we're doing now is literally the square root of the product. We're doing y times y squared, 6 times 24. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. 144. Y is 12. Then, I promised you that after you found one of those 3 variables, I am totally giving you permission to use Pythagorean theorem the rest of the time. You can do 12 squared plus 24 squared and take the square root and you can get x. 6 squared plus 12 squared and take the square root and you can get z. I'll show z doing the proportion way, but know that you can do Pythagorean theorem. After I do z, I'm going to move on. Okay. Now we're looking for z. Z is a leg, so we're not going to use the proportion that deals with altitude. We're going to use the one that deals with a leg. The proportion says hypotenuse, which is 30, hypotenuse over leg equals leg over adjacent segment. So we've got the 6 and we've got the 24. Those are the 2 segments of the hypotenuse. I want the one adjacent to z, and in this case it's 6. If you were finding x, it would have been the 24. Okay, so z is going to be the square root of 30 times 6. I'm not going to spend precious class time factor treeing that because you can do that, okay? Number 13. Once again, we need to ask ourselves which proportion to use. We don't know the altitude. The altitude's not labeled. We don't know it. We're not trying to find it. So we're not going to use the proportion that deals with altitude. We're going to use the proportion that deals with the leg. Okay? So that proportion says hypotenuse. What's the hypotenuse? Be careful. It's not 5. It's not x. It's not 5x. It is 5 plus x. So hypotenuse over leg equals leg over adjacent seg. The adjacent seg to x plus 2 is x, not the 5, but the x. Now we cross multiply. X times 5 plus x is 5x plus x squared. I distributed my x. Now, I'm just going to FOIL. I'm going to FOIL automatically, and I'm not going to show my work, okay? X times x plus 2 times x plus 2. X squared plus 4x plus 4. Oh, yay, the x squareds cancel, just like in the warm-up. Subtract 4x from both sides, and looky there, x is 4. Cool. You have to know how to FOIL, and you had to know that x plus 2 times x plus 2 was not x squared plus 4. Okay? Last one, number 14. The altitude to the hypotenuse of a right triangle, I would stop right there, and I would draw a picture where it's a right triangle and an altitude. The altitude to the hypotenuse of a right triangle divides the hypotenuse into segments with lengths in the ratio of 1 to 2. When I see that word ratio, that is a key word to me. It's a key word. All right, sorry. When you say ratio, it should clue you in. It should be a red flag. I need to attach an x to each of these because this does not equal 1 and this does not equal 2, but it's in the ratio of 1 to 2. So I'm going to label it 1x and 2x. The length of the altitude is 8. Solve for the hypotenuse. And maybe we'll get away with not rounding. Let's see. We know that we're going to choose the proportion that deals with altitude because that's what we were given. So I'm going to do the one that uses altitude. Hypotenuse part 1 over the altitude equals the altitude over hypotenuse part 2. Cross multiply. 8 times 8 is 64. 1x times 2x is 2x squared. Divide by 2, divide by 2. Look at that. It's so pretty. Not really. X squared equals 32. And then we factor tree the 32. I'm not sure I did the exact answer on that one on the homework, did I? Final answer on that one, 2 root 2. Oops, that looks like a weird 2, sorry. 2 root 2, final answer on number 14.